Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Full Court Press. I am your host, Drew Duncan. Do not forget that Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram is all at Drew Duncan 83. Additionally, you can find me on YouTube. Simply look for Drew Duncan. The Full Court Press is on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram as well. And, of course, don't forget you can find us on Google, Spreaker, Spotify, CastBox, basically anywhere that you listen to your podcasts. Hell of a game last night in Toronto. The Raptors close it out, and they are the 2019 NBA champions. The series did not end without mass controversy. There were a lot of ins and outs to this. The games all kind of had a very similar feel up until last night, I believe, when they took on kind of a different makeup. Obviously, the injuries to Kevin Durant and Klay Thompson were not only damning to their own individual careers, respectively, but could have been to the Golden State Warriors. We're going to discuss that. We're going to discuss all facets of this as we get into it. First of all, shout out Klay Thompson. Same way I did KD. Shout you out, man. ACL on the knee. Which, by the way, there's a recent article that I wrote that you can find on our website. We did post it on the Full Court Press, Facebook and Facebook and Twitter pages that you can read about whether or not we should have team doctors. I cite 4 different instances in there. Terrell Davis in the Super Bowl with the Green Bay Packers would be one. Julius Thomas in that situation that happened years down the road with the Denver Broncos would be another. I cited Kawhi Leonard and Kevin Durant as well. And what really got me going with that was thinking about all these things that had happened beforehand. And I look at last night with Klay Thompson, should he have even taken those free throws? I mean, we're talking about an ACL. So whatever pressure he's put on it definitely made it worse. I didn't like the idea of if you're going to have him shoot him or he wants to shoot him, then call a timeout instead of somebody get a foul. I think that's pretty easy. Now, I understand the layer, and that is what if Klay would have been okay? Obviously, with the rules, he wouldn't have been able to come back. But then that tells me that we need a reevaluation of the rules. Pretty simple. We shouldn't be asking players to continuously risk their livelihood for the sake of what is in the moment the greater good. And I understand there's a good majority of athletes who they're not going to tell you, I didn't want to be out there. It is what it is. You get a little free time, go and check out the article. I'll probably even put it in the comment section on this. Via YouTube. And, of course, we're going to put this up on Facebook and Twitter as well. The game last night. Much more controlled start for both teams than what I've been seeing in the first 5 games. The first 5 games were very up and down. Both teams really trying to set this high pace. Very sloppy basketball, to be honest with you, for the majority of it. I think there was only 2 games in this series where at least one team got to the 30-point margin, if I remember correctly, in the first quarter. So the first quarter, and even really in Game 5, the first half, was very difficult to watch. If you were a kind of a casual fan and you're looking to watch a game of basketball, those first 5 games, especially in the first quarter, were not an example of elite basketball by any team. Last night was an example of elite basketball by both teams. We saw a very solid defense. We saw both teams getting up and down the floor. But more importantly, we saw a lot more half-court set offense. Both teams understood situational basketball in this game. And there were a lot of instances in that in which we're going to get to. Both teams understood the importance of this game. And, you know, for the most part, I know a lot of people are going to bag Steph Curry for not scoring a lot of points and not being very good in that last game. And look, understandably so. I know that Steph's shooting ability is part of what makes him Steph Curry. And I've talked about it obviously ad nauseum, the same way that most have. And one of the things that I pointed out here recently was Steph Curry making these basically circus shots, and then 90% of other shooters in this league, you would tell them to never take that shot. But with Steph Curry, you're always going to say, take that shot. It's the way that it is. But I like the role that Steph played and that he kind of established in that game. The role that I appreciated from Steph Curry was being more of a facilitator, which is what I thought from the outset of this series that he should have been. I mean, they kept talking about this box and one defense. I really wanted to see Golden State from the outset run some 1-4 offense. That would have been a great counter to the box and one. And then when they started doing that in this game, started giving you a little bit more of a 1-4 look, putting guys in different rotations, crossing each other under the baseline, allowing Steph Curry to dribble, drive, mix, and plays. That was when I thought Golden State was at their best in this basketball game. Klay Thompson should and deserves a lot of credit for the position that the Golden State Warriors were in, but a lot of those plays were set up by Steph Curry. Will the assist show that in the final box score? No, it will not, because a lot of it was Steph Curry making a pass to somebody who made another pass who then scored the basket. And often that pass was to Klay Thompson. So Steph Curry's not going to get a lot of very good remarks when this series is all said and done, but he definitely deserves them, especially for the game that he had in which he scored 47 points in a losing effort. Now, the assists and rebounds all really slowed down in the second half. I thought Steph tried to do too much in that game. In terms of scoring, I don't think he relied enough on the guys around him. In Game 6, I thought he was doing a very good job of allowing his players to play the game of basketball. He had an MVP finals in Andre Iguodala. You had a huge playmaker in Klay Thompson. Of course, you have yourself on the floor. Draymond Green was playing outstanding basketball. I think it was 9 or 10 rebounds at the end of the first half. Even though he had scored little points, he was performing in other facets of the game. I think he also had 8 assists, if I remember correctly. A lot of guys were stepping up on both sides. DeMarcus Cousins was stepping up, doing a pretty good job. Again, not necessarily scoring the ball, but with that extra pass. Of course, you can't take anything away from Kyle Lowry. Look, when I look at the Toronto Raptors and why they won this game and why they won this series, it was a complete team effort. It kind of seemed like everybody sort of had their individual moments in each of the games, right? Especially last night for the Toronto Raptors. You look at Van Fleet and what he did in the fourth quarter. 12 of his 22 came in the fourth quarter. You look at Kyle Lowry and how he basically carried the Raptors into that first half, 21 points in the first half. Not near the performance scoring-wise in the second half. But the point is he kind of had his moment there in that first half. Kawhi Leonard, as I made mention of, never really had a great full game in this series. Last night was certainly no exception to the rule. But the one thing, or the couple of things that Kawhi did were on a consistent basis. Number 1 was rebounding. Number 2 was assists. 3 was defense. And then, of course, from the free throw line, he was basically as good as it gets from the free throw line in this series. That was where he made the biggest impact. And a lot of what was going on last night with the Toronto Raptors was scoring points from the free throw line. And really, that would almost ultimately define this series if I had to look at it. The free throw line was where the Toronto Raptors made the biggest impact because Kawhi Leonard, especially out of everybody, was doing a great job of, you know what, I'm not having a great game shooting from outside. I'm not really able to create. I'm going to figure out a way to get inside, create fouls. Because both teams realized as this game particularly went along, Klay Thompson, before he got hurt, I think had 4 fouls. Steph Curry had 4 fouls. Kevin Lowry had 4 or 5 fouls in this game. So when you're playing soft like that, both teams really started to attack. I mean, there was a play there where Klay Thompson got the ball from Steph Curry right around midcourt and had Kawhi and Lowry on him both, understanding that they both had 3 fouls, went right after him to the bucket. we really saw both teams use in-game ball IQ in this basketball game. I mean, this was an impressive game to watch. Were the superstars phenomenal all the way around? No, but they performed in other facets that often just don't get talked about enough. I have long since been so damn tired of hearing about nothing but points scored. How can somebody score the ball? When did we become enamored with that particular aspect? I understand it's impressive and it looks cool, but guys, there is more to the game of basketball than just putting it through the hoop. I understand the name of the game is who scores the most points, but there are a lot of different ways to score points, and there are a lot of different ways to make sure the other team can't score as many points as you. Offensive rebounding, defensive rebounding, you don't allow second chance points, creating turnovers, points off of turnovers, getting inside the paint, creating the look any way that you can, getting to your spot on the floor, rotations, running set plays, being better in transition offensively and defensively. I mean, there's just a million and one ways to this. It's not all about who scored 40 points. Last night was a perfect example of that. I mean, let's take a look at Kyle Lowry. Like I made mention of earlier, 21 points in that first half. Lowry would finish the game with 26. He scored 5 points in the second half. This was a collective effort by the Toronto Raptors. And look, I don't want to take anything away from Kawhi Leonard because ultimately he probably should have been given the MVP. But I feel that given, if you look at game one, it was Pascal Siakam. If you look at game two and the loss, it was really the Warriors kind of mirroring the Raptors. And that was what they did for the majority of the series. These teams mirrored each other in wins and losses. When you look at the 4 wins by the Raptors, you had one game by Pascal, you had another game by Kawhi, you had another game from Lowry, you had another game from VanVleet. That's the way that it was. And if you ask me, this is a team effort MVP. When all is said and done, the Toronto Raptors were deserving of this win. I know a lot of people are going to look back on this and go, look, man, this thing was tainted. Klay Thompson got hurt. Kevin Durant got hurt. This was not the same Warriors team. When they beat the Warriors one time, they didn't have Kevin Durant in that game either. You do understand that they have a 6-2 record over the Golden State Warriors for the year, including these finals, right? They were 2-0 against them, and they had a phenomenal record against Western Conference teams. I'm not taking anything away from Klay Thompson or Kevin Durant. I think Kevin Durant, as I've said millions of times over, is the best basketball player in the NBA. But let's not write off Livingston, Curry, Iguodala, and Draymond Green either. Are they a better team with Klay Thompson, with Kevin Durant? Yes. Anybody should be a better team with those two guys. But are they still a damn good basketball team with the aforementioned athletes, including one guy I left out, DeMarcus Cousins? Absolutely. Serge Ibaka played phenomenal defense. Serge Ibaka made a huge difference off the bench as well for the Raptors. It took a team effort to win this series. Folks, you don't go into Golden State's territory, especially over the last 5 years, and just drop 4 wins in an NBA Finals. Or pardon me, 3. You just don't do it. It was a clean sweep in their backyard. And I just don't want to take anything away from that. The better team won this series. Do I think that it could have gone differently with Kevin Durant and or Klay Thompson in? Of course I do. But we don't have the foresight to know what would have happened. How the rotations would have worked. Who would have played who defensively. Lest we forget that Kawhi Leonard held Giannis, the Greek freak, in Milwaukee to 35% shooting when the guy was averaging, I think, 59, 62%, somewhere in that neighborhood in these playoffs. Cut him in half. More than half. Who's to say what he could have done against the KD given a whole series? We don't know. What we do know is this. Toronto is the champions. Or they are the champions, pardon me. It is a deserved victory. It is not tainted. But unfortunately, I think that that's how it will be looked back upon. Guys, I am Drew Duncan, host of the Full Court Press. Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram is all at Drew Duncan 83. Additionally, you can find me on YouTube. Simply look for Drew Duncan. The Full Court Press is on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram as well. Do not forget that you can also check us out on all of our podcasts on CastBox, Spotify, Google, and Spreaker. And as always, don't you dare touch that dial.